Hi everybody! Let me turn down this light a little bit. It's shining on my head. Oh. Okay. It's still shining on my head. That's better. Okay, so what I figured I kind of wanted to touch upon right now in this moment is a little bit of my experiences with the whole aspect of food, overeating, weight gain, weight loss, struggles with the body, perceptions of the body, all of this stuff. And the reason why I'm feeling inspired to share about this is because it has been a very, very prevalent part in my life that has taught me a lot. And so I've experienced a lot with weight and what the obsession with the body can do to us, right? So I'm not sure exactly how it'll come out because I have so much to share about it, but we'll kind of see. Well, basically for me, like this whole journey towards, I guess, spirituality, enlightenment, just happiness, this path that I'm on, that we're all on, started for me a few years ago. And for me, it began an evening that I had binge eaten like I had done many times before. And this time it was so bad that I had completely had enough of it. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I was sick of me feeling sick, full, eating so much food, filling this void with food. And I went up on this up and down roller coaster with weight gain and weight loss for years. I was over 200 pounds around the time that I was 18, 19 years old. And I continued to pack it on a lot. And so this evening that I completely surrendered was the day that I opened my heart and my mind to awakening. I didn't know at the time that that's what I was doing. I just knew that I no longer wanted to be in pain and suffering and feeling like shit. So in that surrender, ever since that moment, I have been guided down this path of awakening, of quote-unquote spirituality, of finding who I am, of finding happiness, and ultimately connecting with this love that is within myself. I knew that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I needed to love myself first, and I was determined to get there. So along this path, for the next 3 or 4 years or so, I continued to read all the books, listen to all the speakers, the gurus, the YouTube videos, I had my own practice at this time, so I was helping a lot of people, doing a lot of presentations, a lot of workshops, and it was all on learning to love yourself first. And yet, for me, I still struggled with overeating. I continued with this for the next 3 to 4 years. I continued with this, eating as healthy as I could during the day, exercising 6 times a week, and then coming home at nighttime and before bed, binging my face off on whatever it is that I could find, going to bed really, really full, waking up the next morning really full, probably starving for the next, starve myself for the morning because I'm still full for the night before, and then repeating the cycle all over again. For me, this was a way for me to say, oh, it connects me with the people. For me, it was a way to hold on to something as if I had a problem. It was my way of saying that until I healed my body, people wouldn't trust me enough, and therefore, they would judge me and not receive help from me. So my first and foremost focus was on my body. I was a competitor in like CrossFit and soccer and, all of these things. I focused on my body. People came to me learning how to, be nutritious and about their food and what they should do with working out and all of this stuff. So I was known for my body. And that was for me my main focus first, and then I hoped that once I got that in order and I had my body at the weight that I wanted it to be, that everything would be fine. But then what ended up happening just last year in November, when Tom came into my life, and of course the miracles, and my life drastically shifted. Basically, what I had learned at that time was my focus was where it does not belong. That my focus needs to be on remembering who I am as a soul beyond anything else, and then my body will come into complete alignment with that. That this world is the one that influences us to believe that we are this body, and thus our body needs to be a particular weight and a particular form in order to feel loved or worthy, based on this unrealistic idea of perfection that we have going on in this westernized world. And so for me, I held that standard for myself also, and I was never good enough in my own eyes. Throughout that experience of overeating and binge eating, I would break out like crazy because I wasn't digesting my food. And so I'd have crazy breakouts, and I'd focus here, and I'd focus on the body that, I was neglecting other things. So when Tom came into my life with this new awareness of where I need to put my focus, I received this unequivocal answer from the divine within my own mind, instructing me to let go of CrossFit, which I loved so very much. For me, it was consuming me because I had these wants and musts and have-tos on my list of things that I needed to do. And for me, I was going through this training period of learning to train my mind and to let go of everything that I thought I wanted, everything that I thought that I must do or have to do or should do. And so I was going through this process of undoing all of my old programs. This was my biggest program with my body. And so I knew I needed to completely shift something, right? So for 7 years, I used to work at a gym, okay? I was the manager there at LA Fitness. I was obsessed with going to the gym. So for me to say bye-bye to the gym was huge for me. It literally happened like overnight. I received the answer in my mind. It was a conviction that I knew to be true. And the next day, I went into my CrossFit, and I was actually working there as an intern, a trainer. And basically, I told them, I'm sorry, like I can't come back. I have to put focus where it belongs. And I let it go. And you better believe for a while, like my ego mind just took my old habits and ran with it. I was eating a lot, I was making 3, 4, 5 trips to, Tim Hortons to get Timbits in an evening and, whatever, driving to all the different ones, whatever, right? I was continually doing it. But this time, instead of binge eating and just doing it really fast and really unconsciously and then feeling like shit and feeling guilty afterwards, instead, I made a promise to myself that any time that I would overeat, I would do it knowing that I'm choosing to do it. That this is a choice that I'm making. Nobody else is responsible for this but me. And then in having that recognition that I'm the one responsible for this, nobody else, I started to have these evenings of binge eating and get to the point where I recognized how silly it was. I recognized that this wasn't doing anything for me anymore. And instead of saying that this was wrong or this was bad or that I'm guilty for something, instead I asked to see it differently. And when I asked to see it differently, what I was shown is that I must be mindful with my food. So don't judge things as if they're good or bad, or I can have this and I can't have that, and these cakes are wrong and they're bad for you and therefore I can't eat those, and have all these labels and judgments on these things that are good for me and bad for me. I was told to take off all of those labels because I had this system of what was quote unquote healthy and good for the body and those that weren't. And so I judge everything everywhere I went. I judge others on what they were eating. I judge myself on what I was eating. And if I would have a cookie before bed, it would be, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that, right? So what I was taught was to be mindful with my food, that no matter what it was that I chose to eat, that if I ate it with presence, with mindfulness, and with intention, like positive love and intention, then it doesn't matter what the food was that I ate, but it was my thinking around it, right? And then so for me, I started to take this into an everyday thing, that when I was eating, I was present with my food. And I'd eat and I'd enjoy the bites and I'd enjoy the taste and the smell and the texture of the food. So instead of eating it as fast as I could and eating every 3 hours and working out all the time and eating this because it's good and not eating that because it's bad and then eating the bad at night because I restricted myself during the day, like instead of that pattern, I just allowed myself to have whatever it is that I felt guided to in that moment. And if I felt guided to it in that moment, you better believe that I would enjoy the shit out of it. I would enjoy it. And because I gave myself permission to enjoy it, I was satisfied. Completely satisfied. And in being mindful with my food and loving myself through this process, I was able to eat as much as my body needs and stop. That I no longer felt that it was me, Brittany, in control of what I should or should not eat, but that my body is now given also to my Creator to be a vessel of communication instead of a means to lose weight and eat healthy. I shift my focus from me identifying with my body to me identifying with my soul. So now my body can be a mere extension of who I am as a soul, but it is not who I am. I am a soul and I have a body, not the other way around. This is the shift in which we are all needing to endure within our own mind, within our own consciousness, for things to fall into alignment the way that they're supposed to. But if our focus is on our body and losing weight and being healthier and doing all these things, I'm not saying, to be healthy is a bad thing, but what I'm saying is to get our own thinking in proper alignment of it, right? So that the only way that we are going to stop these quote-unquote habits of, binge eating or not eating or, whatever they may be, is for us to change the cause, which is within the mind. Okay? So for me, I continued to go through these 4 years focusing on my soul, but at the same time focusing on my body and using my body as my first focus. And then last year, I let go of my body as a focus completely and entirely and had a little while where my ego took over me and I was eating really bad. But then that stopped and I was really just mindful and I was healthy. And if I felt like going, to be active, I'd be guided to yoga. I'd be guided to go for a walk. I'd do some push-ups in my living room. I would do some stretches, right? So it came through inspiration instead of I have to. Right? And then the food in which I would eat would be like, okay, what does my body need? And I would go and eat what my body needed or what I wanted instead of having restrictions on myself. Because the moment we have a restriction on ourselves, there's a part of us that just says, oh, you want to eat it? Just eat it. It's okay. Just a little bite. That's all. Just a little bite. And then you have a little bite, and you're like, oh my God, that's so good. And then you keep eating it, and you keep eating it, and you keep eating it, and you're like, oh, I already screwed it up now, so it doesn't matter. I might as well eat some more, and then you eat 5 more cookies, right? This whole thing. And so you get in this pattern. You get in this rut. You get in this endless cycle that spins us downward because we've accepted a thought into our mind that is harmful, right? And so basically, what we need to do is to begin to be aware of our mind and shift the focus from being afraid of gaining weight or this desire to lose weight to just acceptance of where we are right now. And when we accept where we are right now, I got myself here. I'm fully responsible for it. If I'm supposed to lose weight, I will. But I'm going to put my focus where it belongs, and it is on my soul, not on my body. And my soul is that of love. So if I take this mind frame of love in every single moment, with every single food that I eat, with every single bite that I have, no matter, what happens, then you will slowly, slowly, slowly lift the veils of ego, lift the veils of illusion, lift the veils of habits and the past, so that no longer you're living through through the past, but you're living in the present moment, able to be mindful with your food and absorb the food and talk to the body, to absorb its nutrients and to eliminate what needs to be and all of this stuff. You actually cultivate a relationship within the self. And then for me, I got to that point where I needed to seek that cause within my mind. I needed to figure out where all of this started from and where it all originated from so that I might forgive and let go. So for me, what I was shown within my own mind was myself when I was younger. And I experienced what it was like being young and judging other bodies, meaning my sister, my mother, my cousins. And all of them are very, very thin and very, very beautiful. And for me, who believed myself to be a body, I judged myself based on them and based on what I saw, right? And they're the ones that, fit into this perfect idea of a body that matched up with the magazines and the television and all this stuff. So for me, I had this distorted perception of what my body was supposed to look like. And then from that moment onward, because I didn't have the same body figure as them, I was less than. I looked at myself as, ugly, as, not beautiful and too overweight. And then so what I started to do was when I would eat something, I remember having these big giant chocolate muffins. If I was going to eat one, I'd bring one up for my sister or my mom and get them to eat with me so I wouldn't feel as bad, right? And then I would continue to turn to food as a comfort because I felt that it was my means of comfort, of protection. And I know a lot of us do this, right? And so for me, I was taken back to those times when I made those conclusions that I was not good enough and that I was unworthy based on my body. So when I went back to that time in my mind and I saw myself as this young kid drawing these conclusions based on my false misperception of what is happening, I instantaneously welcomed forgiveness because I really did not know what I was doing. I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to see differently because that is all that I knew. And in that moment of embracing forgiveness within myself, it was from that moment onward that I never experienced those old habits or patterns again. It literally vanished, and I didn't even know it vanished until weeks go by. I'm like, hey, I haven't even, binged in a while. What do you know, right? And so it just kind of happened. It just kind of happened. And so now, thanks, Tom.
Try to be invisible.
Try to be invisible. So now, as I continue to go throughout my days, I have completely and entirely given my body and anything that I need to do in regards to it to spirit, like I've given everything else, right? That this is just another tool that spirit can work through, and it literally for me now is a vessel of communication instead of being something that I need to shy away from or identifying it as who I am or judging it for what it is or what it should be, right? All of that stuff is gone because I knew that I no longer wanted to be in pain. I no longer wanted to suffer. I no longer wanted to feel like shit. And so when I took myself to my deepest, darkest times, I surrendered, let go, open to see it differently, and I was shown, right? So we all have the means within us to do this, but we must recognize that there is another way and that we are responsible for what is happening at that moment. So when we take full responsibility and become open to the other way, we are shown it. And then we stop the unhealthy eating. We stop the unhealthy habits. We let go of all that stuff because it's no longer serving us. It's no longer useful to us. It's rendered useless at this point because we no longer want to suffer. So now, as I go throughout my days, I eat when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm full. I eat whatever it is that my body is feeling that it needs at that time. And I trust it. And I found that when I started using food as a means to share with others is when my focus entirely switched around it too. That it's no longer me and what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat and what I have to have and what I can't have and all of this stuff. I instead of any of that, it is what would I like to make for others? What would be enjoyable? you know, and then it's still well-rounded, it's still very healthy, it's still very nutritious, and yet it doesn't have any of our mental blocks and attachments to it. So yeah, with that being said, I'll probably make another video to continue on with this one, to kind of complete some tools that we all can use with one another and with ourselves to help us heal our bodies, heal our minds, and ultimately heal our lives. So, on that note, I will say goodbye. Bye!